simply amazing. Not just buildings that are static and unresponsive, but windmills have motion and move in tune with the sun and the wind. Ask a miller and they will tell you. Windmills have personality, and you can hear them speak when they are in motion. Perhaps only a sailor in a ship share a similar bond. Windmills are part of the cultural and lived experience of those who settled in Steinbeck. From Friesland and Flanders, to Danzig in East Prussia and on to the settlements in southern Ukraine, windmills were part of this people's daily life. This windmill is a barometer both of the local community and of a people's connection with their past. In 1877, Abram S. Friesen built the first windmill, not far from Friesen Machine Works on Friesen Avenue. 90 years later, when the visionary directors of the new museum sought a centerpiece project, they decided to celebrate both Abram S. Friesen's accomplishments and the old cultural connection that many Mennonites share with the people of the Netherlands. With the help of the Dutch Windmill Society, oversight by millwright Jan Meddendorp, a contribution of mechanical parts from a crumbling German windmill, and the hard work of local carpenters, the project took shape. Steinbeck's second windmill was dedicated in November 1972 amidst great fanfare. It was around 2:30 in the morning on Sunday, October 22nd. The phone rang and startled myself and Donna awake. I was pretty groggy, but answered the phone and heard a familiar voice sobbing, "Gary, the windmill, it's on fire." Even now, those words shock. I drove the streets of Steinbeck at an unsafe speed. Coming up Highway 12, I remember seeing, as I approached Park Road, an unnatural glow in the horizon. And then it came into view, the windmill, covered in layers of deep flame from top to bottom. My foot came off the accelerator, and I remember at that point realizing that there was nothing that anyone could do to save the windmill. I was going to turn in at the lake entrance to the windmill, but realized what I really should do is get a hold of someone. So I went up to the next entrance, pulled onto the main parking lot, and ran into the village center. I called John Peters and told him the terrible news. Then I grabbed the camera from the office and ran out to face the inferno. When I arrived at the scene of the fire that night, I could see that the city of Steinbeck had every available piece of firefighting equipment on hand. The pumper truck, the ladder truck, all of the other rescue vehicles were here. They set up 2 hoses to douse the flames, but you could see right away that they were having little to no effect on the fire. The flames were leaping wildly high into the night sky, and the wind that night was blowing from the south at about 40 to 50 kilometers an hour. What this did was take pieces of shingle and burning parts of the windmill and toss them high into the air, and they traveled north and landed on the roofs of the Old Colony Church, the steamer shelter, and the Waldheim house. This caused us a lot of concern, and the water just wasn't enough to do the job. As the water in the pumper truck ran out, they ran a hose to the pond, and over the next few hours, the fire slowly abated. By 4:30, John and I watched as the last bit of the windmill burned. We'd seen the glass in the windows melt. We saw the siding eaten away, and now we watched as the millstones on the north side of the windmill fell through the burnt-out floor. What was left was just a burnt-out black skeleton of the base, and there, perched almost miraculously on top, were the windmill sails, still facing south, held in place by the large heavy windshaft on top of the burned-out ruins. Following the terror of the fire and that night, there were many questions that we asked. Was it arson? Who would do such a thing? Or was it an accident? And how could that have happened? An emergency board meeting was called for that Sunday afternoon. Board members arrived and were briefed on the events of the night. All expressed great shock at what had happened. There was a unanimous decision that the windmill must be rebuilt. And, I don't know who it was, but someone suggested, let's rebuild it in a year. The board agreed, and the work began. Over the following days, the fire marshal confirmed that indeed the fire was arson. Accelerant had been used on the second floor, and obviously it was done deliberately. Volunteers worked feverishly in those following weeks, sifting through the ashes that were left, looking for metal parts that could be saved and reused. In early December, after a call for help went out to the Dutch Millwright Society, Lucas Verbeij arrived and looked at the parts and pieces that had been saved. He looked at the blueprints and talked to many of our volunteers and the board. He agreed to help and said he would try to help us rebuild the mill within the year. By pioneer days of 2001, the timber frame structure of the base was complete. The windmill cap was completely built, and 3 Dutch millwrights from Holland arrived to unpack a sea container full of the gears, the new stones, and the shafts for the interior working of the mill. 329 days after the terrible events of October 22nd, 2000, the windmill was complete. And a few days after that, the first bag of flour was ground. You and I and everyone here, we rebuilt it together. May this windmill grind flour for many years to come. May it stand as a symbol of hope and all the things that we share together as a community and as a people.